Hey y'all, so today I'm gonna be going over how to make a closure wig. So the first thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna be using a 6x6 closure, and this is from my hair company, Triple Diamond Hair. And so I'm gonna be using the L'Oreal light blue, I believe that's what it is. I don't know, I'm gonna go ahead and insert a picture anyway, but it's the L'Oreal quick blue. You can see the container back there. And I'm gonna use about 2.5 scoops of it with some 30 to volume developer. With the developer, I really don't have a measurement that I can tell you to use. I just put in a little bit at a time, so that way it can be like a very thick paste type consistency, because you don't want it to be too watery, because what happens is it's going to leak through and get all over your hair, and you don't want your hair to be orange, because that is definitely not a good look. So as you can see, it's a really thick. I kind of just play it by hand. You know, if it's like too thick, then I'll just keep going until I get it to like a good little creamy type buttery little consistency or whatever, but to where it's not really drippy, but it's kind of smooth, and you can kind of see it right there. So yeah, that's it. After that, I'm going to go ahead and start putting it on the lace closure. I always start, well, I'm not going to say I always start in the back, because actually it really don't matter. But I tend to start from the back part instead of the front, because I feel like the front bleaches a little quicker. But it really don't matter. When you press it in, you just want to make sure that you are not like, you're being kind of light-handed with it, because you know, the goal is to not get hair on your, to not get bleach on your actual lace. So I'm just going to go ahead and, just cover the entire closure with this bleach and not talk that much, so you guys don't have to hear me. So once the closure is completely coated with the bleach, I'm going to go ahead and set my timer on my phone for 15 minutes. Now I washed it off and rinsed it and everything, and I did let purple shampoo sit on it for about 5 minutes. After I rinsed it out, I realized that the tip, not the tip, but like the knots in the very front, the bleach kind of leaked through a little bit. So in order to color correct that, I just use whatever dye I have on hand. I just happen to have some Adore, so I just use that. I dip it in use an old eyelash wand, and I basically dip it in the color and put it over the strands of hair. As you can see right there, all I do is just brush any hair that is bleached, and that's basically a quick fix for it. You can use a dye, like I said, I just got to do it, but that's all I have right now, and the wig is for me, so it's not a big deal. But you can do that, and that's just an easy way to fix it if you happen to go over, if you get a little bleach on your actual hair at the roots. It's also a good way to dye too, like if you're toning like some blonde hair or anything. It's a good way, or even dyeing the hair, it's just a good way to apply it so it don't get all over the lace as well, as far as the color. So after I do that, I leave that on for about 30 minutes or so, and then rinse it off and proceed to construct my wig. Okay, so this is the closure. This is a 6x6 closure. So you'll have 6 inches above parting space and 6 inches in depth. So the first thing I do is just use a little bit of foam lotion. It's the Nairobi foam lotion. It really don't matter what foam lotion you have, or you can use water if you like as well. I just use the foam lotion to put in front of the closure before I pin it down, so that way all the baby hairs, flyaways, whatever, is basically out of my way for when I go ahead and pin it and begin to sew. So when measuring when you're going to pin it, I am going to be doing a middle part, and basically I'm going to install it directly in the middle. The closure is really big, so if you still want to achieve like a deep side part and everything else, you could just move it to where you want. If you had a smaller closure, but at this point it's a 6x6, so it's basically hitting like temple to temple, so you really don't have to shift it unless you want to. But initially I'm going to pull it down about a 1/2 inch in front of the cap. As you stitch and sew, it will go back some, so don't think too much into it about where you actually pin it. I do these a lot, so I'm okay with just eyeing it and pinning it. But you if you need to measure it, just go ahead and use a measuring tape. which is perfectly fine. Yeah, so I'm just gonna take some T-pins and pin the closure first in the front, and then I'll go all the way in the back directly in the middle and pin it there. So I go ahead and take my needle and thread. I put the needle through the closure and through the actual mesh cap. I don't go through the band, I just sew on top of the band and I place the needle through. So I'm going to show you right here. I'm trying to keep up with this, y'all. So stick the needle through the lace and then through the mesh cap. I wrap it around twice and I go ahead and pull it to make sure that it locks. Make sure you pull against your stitch to make sure it locks it in place. Therefore, your wig will last longer. And so basically, I do the same thing over. Put the needle through, wrap around twice, and go ahead and pull it. My the strings on my needles are very long, so and I go ahead and thread those before I start. So that saves time as well, just FYI. But also, when you're sewing down, make sure that if you can't, because I know I tried to make sure this was beginner friendly, but at the same time, I'm so used to doing this to where I realized I did some things that might not look that beginner friendly. But as you see me pulling on the closure and pulling it towards the back, I'm just making sure that it's still up against the canvas head, because what you don't want to do is sew and then once you finish, you realize that like it's puckled and stuff. So you could just go ahead and place T-pins everywhere that you needed to make sure your closure actually stays down. I just didn't do that, but you guys don't follow me. Also, one more thing about this that I wanted to say is, when I initially did this 6x6 closure, constructing a wig on my own, it took me 4 times of sewing this closure on before I got it. It is not as simple as stitching the 4x4 on because you have so much space. So I realized that after I sewed on one side and went to the other, it was puckling. So just know that if you mess up, it's okay. Just go ahead and start all over again. So right now I'm just going to continue doing the exact same method. I don't want to talk too much, but I want to make sure you guys get it. I'm just going to make sure that the closure is flush up against the canvas head. And yeah, so I'm just going to continue to stitch along the line. You want to make sure that as you're stitching that it's not puckling. I'm not saying like a little bit of puckle or something, but just make sure for the most part that it's actually straight. And as long as you're you got to realize that one of these sides will be your actual base side, because once you get to the other side of the closure, we're going to be pulling against this stitch to make sure that it's absolutely flat. So just continue to stitch, and I'm just going to give you a close-up one more time of how I'm stitching. I'm holding the back of the closure down up against the cap to make sure it's straight and flat. I'm gonna go through, wrap it twice, and pull and make sure the stitch is locked. And I'm gonna do this all the way until the end of the closure on one side, and then we're gonna get to the other side. Okay, now this side is sewn down. You can see that the stitch is straight down. It's totally flat right now on this side. Now we're going to start with the other side, the exact same method. The only thing I want to make sure you do is that you pull. Make sure you are pulling your closure as you're stitching, because you want it to be tension going across. That way it doesn't leave any room for error to where you'll have extra light closure in the middle of your wig where it's all bunched up. So you want to make sure you are pulling it. The stitching will be the exact same way. We're going to go through the cap, the lace, the cap, and you're going to just lock your stitch by making sure you pull it. And also you're going to make sure that as you go through it that you're actually pulling against the closure. If you see that when I stitch, I'm kind of going down a little bit on the cap, so that way when I pull to lock it, the closure is going to stretch across as well. So it's kind of like having a tug of war between the two sides. But you want to make sure there's some tension on it, because you want your closure to be flat at the end of the day. This part right here is going to be the process that will make or break your closure, because if you get ready to sew the back on, the back down, and it has any puckle in it, then you will have to cut one of your sides and start restitching, because in order for your closure to have a faultless install, it has to be flat. And this is the part of it that kind of messed me up when I first attempted to use a 6x6 closure. So like I said, don't be discouraged if it actually don't fit. Right here, if you go ahead and put your hand up under that closure, it should be really tight, and that's what I'm showing you right here. You should feel the tension of your finger going under. If you just have a lot of space to put your finger right there, then something is not right, because it should be very tight. So after I go ahead and stitch these sides, I'm going to speed it up a little bit because this video is already very long, you guys. So just put some T-pins in the back, and if your closure is stitched on correctly, it should be fine. It should be like you should see it how you see right now, how it's laying like literally flat across the back of this dome cap. That's exactly how your closure should be laying. If you have any type of lumps or bumps right there, then something is wrong with one of your sides. Take one of them off and start all over. Thread is not that expensive. You can get a really large spool for $5, so don't worry about wasting the thread. Just go ahead and dust yourself off and try again. So I'm going to continue to stitch the exact same way in the back as well, which is going through the lace, through the cap, wrap it twice, and go ahead and pull it and lock the stitch in. And you're going to do that across the entire closure. And that will be the end of it. And we will not deal with this closure until we're actually ready to style. Because right now, we're going to start sewing the bundles on. Okay guys, so for this install, I'm going to be using a 22, 20, and 18 inch bundle of my Brazilian body wave hair. So the first bundle is a 22 inch that we're going to start sewing. And what I want to say about this is that I initially was going to make a how to make a video using a sewing machine, and I figured I might as well do the hand one first. So this first bundle that I'm showing you, it's already like doubled because I doubled it on a sewing machine. But yeah, I didn't want to throw it away, so I'm gonna use it. I mean, yeah. So you won't see me actually like sewing a bundle on that's apart, at least for this first bundle, but the other two bundles are not doubled, so you will see what I do. So the first thing I do is, and I guess it's a good option too if you want to double your tracks on the sewing machine. I double them sometimes, just depends. So the first thing I do is take my needle, put it through the mesh cap. I do not put it through the band when I'm sewing by hand, so that's just so you know. I put it through the track, through the cap, and then I'll go ahead and basically sew the same way I always stitch, which is put the needle in between, and I'll go ahead and pull it to lock that stitch in. Anytime that I'm very first putting a track in, the very first, what am I trying to say? When I put the very first stitch in, I go ahead and stitch it in that same spot. I wrap it like 3 or 4 times just to make sure I lock the stitch in. What I didn't mention is that I did put a T-pin at the bottom, like for the nape of my neck, at the bottom of the dome cap. It's not any measurement or anything. I just go ahead and stitch at the bottom, okay? I just pull it down. So to go ahead and make it easier to sew, I would suggest that you put a T-pin on the other side of your track where you're going to stop it. So that way it's already placed against the cap and it won't be that hard for you to hold the track while attempting to stitch at the same time. But of course, if you can, it's okay. So I'm going to zoom in right here for you guys to see and basically do the same thing again, which is showing you how I stitch. Be careful because, if your wefts, if your tracks are double wefted and stuff, sometimes it's really hard to get through the tracks. So I stick myself a lot. So anyways, I just go ahead and do the same thing I told you guys before, which is put the needle through the cap. And I, go ahead and lock it, wrap it around twice, pull it through, make sure the stitch is locked. Now, for cutting off the end of the thread, you can do it when you're finished with the wig if you like, but I would suggest, until you're like in the hang of it, cut off your strings as you go, so at the end, you don't end up having strings hanging out from your wig. And I mean, it's just, it's just a little tip. It's not really that big of a deal to cut it while you're going, even when doing it on a sewing machine. But, okay, so I'm just going to go through the track once again, wrap twice, and pull through the thread and lock the stitch. Always make sure your stitch is locked so that way you don't have any slacks, lumps, or bumps in your actual wig and then your stitching, because you want your stitching to be nice and consistent as well as secure. Now, for me personally, I'm not really like a tiny little blanket stitcher or anything. For the purposes of doing a closure or a frontal, I make sure I stitch that super close. But as far as the tracks, I'm not going to make like really, really tiny stitches because, like, honestly, as long as the stitch is not super wide, whether it's small or if it's wide, like this, the actual thread will hold, okay? Like, it will hold. It's not going nowhere unless somebody cut it out. Now, when you sit there talking about, oh, well, my wigs have been staying together for 2 years, okay, at that point, sis, if it starts to fall apart, well, you've gotten more than enough of wear out of it, and it's okay to go in and retighten your stitches, okay, at 2 years at this point. But this is the way I stitch on my clients' heads as well, like on the braiding foundation or like a net. And it's always worked, whether I have a client with 1 inch of hair or 18 inches of hair. It works the exact same way. It does not come out unless they cut it out. And most of my clients wear their sew-ins about 2 or 3 months. And yeah, so just continue to do the same thing. I don't want to keep talking because I'm just doing the exact same stitch, but I just want to make sure you guys get it. And so that's why I didn't like speed up a lot of the video. So once I stitch across, and you guys, you can also, when you're stitching, you can move around your mannequin. I'm not moving around it, and I'm turning the actual cork head is because I have my camera set up right there. So I don't want to have to go around the camera and everything to go back and forth and then get in the view. But anyways, so we're going to do the same thing, just continue stitching, you guys. Just continue to stitch. I want to say right here on the end, When you actually go and stitch into the very end of the track, I normally, like I said, will go through that about 4 or 5 times just to make sure I lock the stitch in. And it's right there where the T-pin is. After that, I go ahead and I cut the track. I know some people feel some type of way about cutting their tracks. It's really a personal thing. I've made a lot of wigs before where I didn't cut the tracks, and then I make some where I do. On this particular wig, I am going to cut the tracks because I just prefer to cut it. It's not a big deal for me to work with tracks that's been cut, and also this is my wig as well, so, you know, it's okay. And so I'm just going to show you right here what I do, which is go through the cap, and, you know, go ahead and wrap it a couple times. And I'm going to lock the stitch in. Once I lock that stitch in, you guys, the very last stitch, like I said, I'm just going to make sure it's super tight. And yeah, I'll just go ahead and make sure I wrap it a few times, so that way it's locked in, and then cut it. So now this next part, what I do is that when I have thread that's still basically left over from the previous track, I don't cut it, okay? So what I'm gonna go ahead and do, which is show you that I still have the needle, basically. I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to say, but I still have the needle from before, and what I do is go up a little bit where I'm going to place the next track, and I just move the needle. So all I do is just pull the thread. Make sure you hold the thread too, so it don't tangle up like it just almost tried to do on me. So I just go ahead and pull the thread up along the dome cap, if that make any sense. But you can see what I'm basically doing. I just stitch, you know, just stitch along the cap to where the next anchor that I want my track to be. What I went ahead and did was, because I was like, well, I don't want it to be confusing. So just in case, let me just go ahead and show, you know, I went ahead and took the double stitching apart. And so the tracks are not together anymore. I just went ahead and used a seam rip and just ripped it off. So what I would do is place the tracks on top of each other the same way that they were previously, and insert the needle. Once I insert the needle in both of the tracks, I'm just gonna go ahead and pull it. So I pull it and hold my thumb to put my thumb there to hold it in place. Once I go ahead and go through it, I'm just going to wrap the needle a few times. Like I said, 3 or 4 times. The idea of it is just to get it to lock in. So anytime you're first adding a track, I'd recommend that you actually tighten it a few extra times than what you would normally do, just to make sure that that stitch is actually locked. And then from there, I'm just going to continue to stitch the way that I normally do. Like I said, to help you stitch, if you need to place T-pins throughout the wig making process, then go ahead and do it. If you maybe need to draw lines on your cap to know exactly where to place your tracks, you should do that as well. Right there, I'm just showing you that you can use a Sharpie. This is a metallic Sharpie marker. That's the marker I normally use when I'm stitching on the sewing machine. So you can use that, and it basically shows up really nice. I'm just showing you how it looks, so that way you can see it. But if you need that, by all means, do it. It's just that I found myself sometimes not really actually doing that because, you know, like I said, I'm used to stitching, so I just place my thumb on the track, put the needle through the cap, go ahead, wrap it twice, and pull the stitch and lock it in place. You want to make sure you lock the stitch. If you go ahead and make a stitch, if you go ahead and stitch and you don't lock it, you'll see exactly what I mean, because it won't be secure. It'll be kind of loose and, you know, a little saggy. So that's the reason for making sure you definitely pull every time you stitch. No matter how many times you wrap it, just to make sure that you actually pull and just lock your stitch. Not only will it be secure, but it also gives it a better looking appearance as well, because you want it to appear to be neat. Because, you know, we are YouTube professionals around here. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue to stitch this, but I'm gonna go ahead and put music on because I don't want to keep talking to you guys and doing the same thing, but I also don't want to speed the video up too much so that everybody can basically, you know, follow along and you can actually see what's going on. Okay, so right here, I'm just showing you guys that this is after I did the second bundle. You see that track that's directly in the middle? That was the last piece that I had left on a 20-inch bundle. So whenever I have a little piece left over, I go ahead and place it in the middle. So that's why you see that little piece of track sitting right there in the middle. Now I'm gonna move over to this 18-inch bundle. So far in this wig is just two bundles of 22 and a 20, and you can see it's not that much space left, but we're gonna fit this whole bundle in there. My bundles are really full though. They're really full, and it's some really great hair, and you guys should check it out on triplediamondhair.com. So I just wanted to pop in to let you guys know that, and I'm gonna continue to do the exact same thing that we've been doing the entire time. Which is, you know, my stitching won't change. It will be the exact same way, and I'm going to continue to do that until I get up to the closure. And so I'm going to let this like speed up a little bit because this video, it's already at 40 minutes. And I think as far as the beginner's part, you guys basically caught on to it. If there's any other questions or anything that you have, you know, just let me know. Oh, and appreciate this video, y'all, because let me tell you, it was so long. I must have watched hours of footage, like, like so many hours of footage just so I can, like, get, you know, straight to the point, because I don't really like to, you know, just play around with the videos or whatever. But yeah, I really wanted to do this, and I just wanted to make sure it was nice and clear and you can see everything. And so, yeah. This week, I'm gonna hope and pray that this week I'll be able to do the sewing machine video, so that way you guys can, you know, see how that go. I am going to attach the styling video for this wig. I'm gonna do it on another video, so that way this video don't end up being like an hour and a half. So yeah, so after I just stitch this, I'll upload a video later on showing you guys how I style it. I'm gonna go ahead and flat iron it first and like do like a little silk press before I go ahead and, you know, curl it again and everything. So yeah, and as you're stitching, if you can tell right there, just like a little quick thing, you can see how it kind of looks like the closure is like puckling a little bit from the back. That is showing that way because we're constantly pulling the cap, you know what I mean, like we're constantly yanking on the cap as we're stitching. But don't panic if you see that happening, because it will not affect the closure. I promise it'll be perfectly fine. And thank you guys for watching this video. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please go ahead and subscribe for me, as well as thumbs up the video. So thanks for watching anyway, and you guys let me know if you have any questions below. I will definitely answer them for you. I read all my comments like every other day. So thank you for watching again, and you guys have a great week.